Hello, students, and welcome to 4.4 slope-intercept form. Pardon my son's noise in the background. Today's targets: identify slope and y-intercept from an equation and graph it without making a table. Pause the video right here to copy down the key ideas. All right, next we are going to do an example together where we're just going to identify the slope and y-intercept of this slope-intercept equation. So as we look at this equation, the number that sits next to x, this would be our slope. So our slope is -4, and we write it as a fraction over 1. The number that is after that, this -2, that's our y-intercept. So b is equal to -2, and we like to write it as a coordinate, 0, -2. So there you have it. There's our first slope-intercept identification for example 1. All right, in example 2, we have an equation that's not in slope-intercept form. So first copy it down, and then we're going to move things around to get it into slope-intercept form, which basically means y is alone. So we're going to add 5 to both sides so that now y is alone, and it equals 3/2 x plus 5. Next, identify the number next to x. That's your slope. So you got your slope equals 3/2. And the number that follows is your y-intercept. So you've got b equals 5, or as a coordinate 0, 5 right there.
Daddy, can I talk?
All right, these are 4 ones to try on your own. Identify the slope and y-intercept. Pause the video right here, and then we'll go through the solutions together. All right, let's take a look at the solutions here. Our slope is a number that sits next to x. So in the first one, the slope is 3/1, and the y-intercept is that -7 right there. So b equals -7, or 0, -7. In the second one, you don't see a number next to x, so you know to dress it up with a 1. Your slope is 1/1. The number next to x, and your y-intercept is 2. So b equals 2, or write it as 0, 2. And the third one, again, a naked variable. Put a 1 in between that negative sign and the x, and your slope is the number next to x. So that means your slope is -1/1, and your y-intercept is -2. So we're going to take that and write that down as b equals -2, or as a coordinate 0, -2. Now in the fourth one, it's not in slope-intercept form. So you have to get rid of this -1 on both sides. Now you're in slope-intercept form, and you can identify the slope, which is the number that's next to x, and that is -2/3. And then the y-intercept is the number that follows that +1. So b equals 1, or you can write it as 0, 1 right there. So hopefully you did okay on those 4. Let's move on to our next example. All right, in example 3, we're finally going to explore graphing slope-intercept form without making a table. So step 1, and you want to write these steps in your notebooks over here. So if you need to pause the video, that's totally okay. Step 1, identify the y-intercept and the slope, just like we've been doing. So the slope is the number next to x, or -3. So we're going to write it as a fraction, -3/1. And the y-intercept is the number that follows, or 3. b equals 3, or the coordinate 0, 3. Step 2 is to plot that y-intercept. So go to your graph now, draw your coordinate plane in your notebooks, and go to 0, 3, and plot your y-intercept. That's going to be your first point you plot every time, your y-intercept. Next, we're going to put more points on here by using our slope. Our slope is -3/1, right? So that means we're going to go down 3 to the right 1 from our y-intercept. So 1, 2, 3 to the right 1. Repeat this a couple times. 1, 2, 3 to the right 1. 1, 2, 3 to the right 1. If we were to continue this trend in the opposite direction, we would go up 3, left 1, in order to make our straight line. So that's exactly what we're going to do. And now take your ruler and draw your line through your points with arrows at either end. And you did it. You plotted slope-intercept form without having to make a table. This question over here says, okay, what's the x-intercept? Or where your graph crosses the x-axis. Well, this is the x-axis right there, and it crosses at 1, 0. So that's your x-intercept. All right, pardon the baby noise in the background. Let's try one more together before you do one on your own. So draw a new coordinate plane, or you can use the same one, just graph with a different color, highlighter, or pencil. Let's go ahead and identify the slope and y-intercept first. Our slope is that number next to x. And I realize that negative sign is there, float to the top. So your slope is -1/2. And then we've got our y-intercept is +1 right there. So that means b equals 1, or 0, 1 is our coordinate. Let's plot that y-intercept at 0, 1 right there. It's our first point we plot. Using our slope, we are going to go down 1 to the right 2 from the y-intercept. You always go back to that y-intercept to plot more points. Do this pattern in reverse now. Go up 1, left 2. That's plenty of points to draw your line through all those points you plotted with your ruler with arrows at both ends. And that x-intercept, that's that point right there. The y-intercept is the green one. X is where your orange line crosses the x-axis. So your x-intercept here looks like it's at 2, 0. Okay, now it's time for you to try one on your own. Okay, your turn. Go ahead and pause the video right here and try graphing this linear equation by yourself, following the steps we've modeled. And then when you're done, identify the x-intercept. We'll go over the solution in just a moment. All right, let's see how you did. Here's our solution. Our slope is 1/1, a y-intercept of -4. So our first point you plot is at 0, -4. And then you use your slope to plot more points by rising up 1 and going 1 to the right. Repeat it several times, and then go in the opposite direction to get more points to the left of your y-intercept. Finally, the x-intercept is 4, 0. All right, here's our final example, and it's a real life one. So you're going on a taxi ride, and as you read this problem, notice I've highlighted what the y variable represents and what the x variable represents, and then you should see those titles on the y-axis and x-axis. You've got your equation, you know the slope, you know the y-intercept, so you write them down. Next up, we need to plot this graph. So we'll plot our y-intercept. Now it looks like we need to label the x and y axis here. So the x-axis, I'm just going to count by 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, now the y-axis though, I'm going to count by 2.5. So 2.5, 5, and let me fast forward through this for you. All right, I've got my x and y axis labeled now. I got my markings, so now I'm ready to plot my points. First point, that y-intercept at 2. Well, that's going to be approximately right here. It's not perfect, that's okay. And then we're going to go up 2.5 from there, and then 1 to the right. So 2 plus 2.5 is going to be 4.5. So 4.5 will be approximately right there. And we're going to continue going up 2.5 and 1 to the right. So we're going to go up from 4.5 and add 2, and that'll take us to about 7. And we're just going to keep continuing this trend here until you can draw your line with your arrow. Okay. The slope, 2.5/1. Go ahead and take your y-axis title and slap it next to the numerator, and the x-axis title and put it by your denominator. This is how you interpret slope. You use the titles. In other words, it costs $2.50 for each mile, or 1 mile in the taxi. The y-intercept at 0, 2 means at the x value at 0 miles, it already costs you $2. So before you even ride anywhere in the taxi, it costs you money. It's like an upfront fee right there. Okay, all right, let's take a look at our targets and what our homework assignment is. Okay, can you identify slope and y-intercept from an equation? And can you graph that equation without having to make a table? Your homework is a CUDA worksheet, and is linked on the homework calendar. It's also available in OneNote right here. And it's going to be practice doing those targets, identifying the slope and y-intercept, with the occasional equation like number 8 not in slope-intercept form. So you'll have to rearrange number 8. And then the rest, or the second half, will be graphing equations. So use your slope and y-intercept to graph. You do not make a table. Have a great rest of your day and good luck on the homework.